Welcome to the ELECTRI Expo's presentation on reimagining the electrical construction industry. We're happy to have you here. You've made a fine choice for your 11 o'clock conference. Mr. Bowen over here is going to be a wonderful speaker, and I'm looking forward to it. I, myself, am Bob Doherty. I'm with Wolf Brothers Supply, and I'm also past president of the Electrical League of Ohio and current treasurer. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Josh Bowen.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Good. Let's jump in. I'm going to go fast. I'm about to pour a lot on you in a short period of time. So if you have a question or have a comment at any point in time, I'll repeat it back so they can record it. But I do encourage you to speak up and ask questions, and I'll try to leave some time at the end of the day. One thing to know, ELECTRI is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are here to help electrical contractors stay ahead of the pace of change. So anything I can do to ever help any of you, never hesitate to reach out to me. There'll be a QR code on the back end of this with some additional resources. But josh.bowen, electri.org, you can always expect a quick turnaround and get in touch with me. So I'm here to tell you guys that we are in the future. We are living in the future every single day. Right now we're at a point that it may not always seem so tangible, and it's not evenly distributed. But every day I wake up and I look at the news. And I look specifically at what's happening around the world of electrical construction, electrification. And every morning I wake up to things like this. Look at 25. Looming threats of recession. Guys, we've been hearing about recessions since the pandemic. We've been hearing about this for 5 years. In our world of electrical construction, we've not been feeling it, and God knows those of you in Ohio absolutely have not been feeling this. We look at some of the numbers in our world, in our space. Yes, the Great Recession was tough on our industry, and we had to navigate that. But I believe we are so well positioned in the world today to navigate all the challenges coming ahead of us. There's a tremendous amount of opportunities. It requires change. But look at the numbers. Guys, $230 billion in 25. This money's already allocated. Stargate, the $500 billion project. You start thinking about where we are, and let's take the Intel job. Oh, it's been put on hold, 2030, 2031. Poor old Ohio just keeps the news, keeps coming out. This was this morning that I picked up on the news, looking at a new data center. Amazon's really trying to invest in Ohio. You're at the crossroads, guys. You're at the crossroads of data centers, AI, semiconductors, quantum computing. A lot is happening here in this state and this region. And you're going to continue to see that. Right now, think about how far we've come in such a short period of time. We've gone from $10 billion computing clusters, these GPUs and the NVIDIA H100s or the 6400 or whatever one it is that's out there. You look at where we are and we've moved from $10 billion to now $100 billion computing clusters. And they're talking about $1 trillion computing clusters by the end of this decade. Sam Altman just came out the other day, and they're talking about $7 trillion computing clusters for what we're talking about with AI. Who's at the point of all of this? Is the electrical construction, is the tip of the spear. Energy demand is increasing. If you don't believe this, do you know what tells me that it's happening? KKR, massive private equity, Apollo, Bain, Carlyle, Blackstone, BlackRock. I can keep going down the list of the largest private equity companies in the world are investing massively into the United States of America and even buying up and investing heavily in our utilities. This is something week after week. And what are these businesses, what are these private equities in the business of? Making money. Do you think they're investing in utilities because they don't foresee a demand in energy increasing in the near future in this country? You guys know AEP, right? In this market, your utilities. Look at the investment that was just made into AEP in your own backyard from a Canadian public sector pension investment plan in KKR. And I see this day in and day out. I'm not talking about hundreds of millions. I'm talking about billions and billions of dollars. Apollo last year in the United States of America invested $222 billion in infrastructure. Electrification has more money being spent on it. This energy transition, more money is being spent on electrification of the United States of America than artificial intelligence at this point in time. We are in the right place at the right time for the future. New doors open every single day for us, but we're so busy doing the work that we have in front of us. Are we paying attention to that? And I want to bring it to your attention. The economy is changing. We're moving from the old economy to the new economy. We'll talk about that. But when I talk about the new economy, it's all driven around intellectual property and data. What has happened that maybe all of you do not realize? Schneider, ABB, Siemens, Eaton are moving from selling big gray boxes to selling SaaS. What's SaaS? Software as a service. Reoccurring revenue, guys. That they're selling smart breakers, they're selling smart gear, they're selling connected solutions and digital solutions that have reoccurring revenue. They want to now see visibility post-installation. They're looking for partners to help them gain visibility to the energy management and all of these services that can be attached on the back end post-installation. How many of you are living in a world, install mindset, I got to get in, make my money, get out? We're going to talk about why that is so important that we start to change that today. Now, all of this is going to require massive amounts of power. There's still hurdles out there, but I'm telling you, the way things have moved, and I'm going to give DOE a lot of credit here. They've kind of pent up demand. There's going to be solar. There's going to be other types of renewables. I don't know what's going to happen with wind, but there's enough happening in technology advancements that solar, I'm more bullish on it every day, with the ability to make the panels more resilient, more durable, more energy, more efficient in how they capture energy. But I'm here to tell you, and we'll talk about this, small modular reactors have a massive opportunity in addition to virtual power plants, microgrids, all of these things of how we generate power. There's going to have to be some deregulation. We'll see how it goes politically, but we'll talk about that technology. And if you don't believe we live in the future, I remember when they talked about mapping out the human genome. I was a kid, and they came out and they said, the human genome, we got the first 1%. Only took us 11 and a half years to get the first 1% of the human genome mapped out. Oh, it's going to take 100 years to map out the human genome. 2.5, 3 years later, they completely mapped it out. That first 1%, right? That first 1%. Quantum computing has so much investment going into this. Every day I see IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, Google putting a lot of resources dedicated into this. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, you look at our phones, that phone, when you think about technology, is a transformational technology. It's a foundational, transformational technology. And I'm here to tell you, quantum computing and AI could be two that are hitting side by side, and what that means for the future. There's days I wake up and I think, I don't know. Everybody says it's good, but that's another talk for another day, my AI talk. Now listen, when it comes to fission, which we all understand, and that's what we're currently generating power on, I want you to understand fusion. Fusion uses a whole different fuel type. And it's not uranium. How do I pronounce this again? Deuterium. And it's so easy to find. It's so much more abundant. It's less invasive to get it. It's safer because the way fusion works is it combines, it doesn't split. So it's a much safer. The waste is helium, which we can also use to power and use generation off of. When I talk about fusion, I always thought, maybe in my life. I wake up every day, guys. Last 2 weeks ago, France hit 22 minutes of plasma loop. You see Canada, this is in California, this is all across the country. Every day I wake up to new information. This was yesterday. General Fusion achieves first plasma in LM26. There's a fusion reactor in Pittsburgh that I was reading about the other day. That's a mini fusion reactor that they're looking at how do they scale these up and start to manufacture these and send them around the country. So what I'm here to tell you is, if you don't believe we're valuable, if you don't believe we're in the future, and if you don't think this is a path that's happening, how much are you seeing consolidation of the electrical construction industry? The big are getting bigger. Private equity is investing, global investments are going in and buying up electrical contractors all across the United States. This is the number one sign of industrialization. We are industrializing. Think about what's happened to big ag and the agricultural, what happened there as they industrialized. Think about manufacturing of different components. That is where we are in the electrical construction space. And if you don't believe it again, I'm going to sell you on this a little bit harder. Bear with me for a minute. My first project that I ever worked on, sitting in a job trailer 27 years ago this past December. 27 years ago, I sat on a job that was a 150-bed hospital. We've looked at those plans and we've looked at that information. We've gone back and I've researched this. I go back and I try to remember what was different. All paper plans. I was taking 2D plans and turning 2D plans into 3D models. Not BIM at the time. It was just 3D model running coordination. I look at the rate of change, the owner's expectations, the skill level of the electricians on that job site. Guys, if I look at this, the schedule and everything, let me give you some metrics. That hospital cost about $100 million in Columbia, South Carolina 27 years ago. Do you know what a 150-bed hospital is today? Somewhere around $220 million. The electrical scope of the project went from 10 to 12% 27 years ago. Today, the electrical scope on a project, the 150-bed hospital, 30 to 35% electrical. Price has more than doubled. The electrical scope has more than tripled. And who wants to take a guess on what the schedule looks like? It's 58% of what it was 27 years ago. My electricians, I had 20 out of 25 that could run work and would run work. Today I'm lucky on a job if I have 5 out of 25. Let's be realistic, guys. My plans, my changes, everything has changed. Everything has changed. Maybe we don't take stock, but I'm here to tell you that we are the frog in the pot and the water's getting hot. What we need going forward, understanding that we live in abundant times, requires a shift in mindset right now. The next 2 to 3 years will define the next 15 to 20 years of the future of our industry. The decisions you make over the next 2 to 3 years will define you for the next 15 to 20 years. As I think about where we're at, I go back to the days of a job site in the late 90s, and I think about, this is my job. Keep every other competitor off this job. This is my job. I want to own all of this job. I have all the people. I don't have enough work. Do you know what the change is today, guys? The exact opposite. But how many of us are living with that mindset? This is my job site. I want it all. There you go. I thank you for being honest. We're going to talk about this. Digitization, industrialization, electrification. I'm going to start with electrification. You're not going to hear me talk about EV. You're not going to hear that. I want you to understand, guys, I look at plans all across the country every single day, and I see this all electric options. Do you know what's happening? It's not residential. Heat pumps are going electric, water heaters and everything going electric. Residential, I see this on large commercial plans all day, every day, looking for all electric options. What do you see right here for the front row? Can you read that? Electric steam boiler. The chillers, the boilers, the mechanical room is going fully electrified. You know what keeps mechanical contractors up at night? That everything is electrifying. Everything. What are we doing about that? The technology advancements and changes for heavy industrial heat pumps is exploding. Not to mention that we're going to have connected devices at every single level. You may have heard of the smart toilets, the smart showers, the ability to go in and say my temperature that I love is 101.5. That is my temperature that I set. We're going to need granularity to be able to understand what's the cost and how much electricity is used when I'm charging my car, taking a shower. It's data, data, data. So even glass, guys, the dynamic glass that's out there, this is a growing technology that uses low voltage, uses electricity to power gases to tint windows. Everything is becoming connected and electrified. Everything. And we are in what they're calling, this is CEO of GE Vernova. Everywhere I look, everything I'm reading tells us that we're in this super cycle, this decade of demand, decade of action that we're currently in today. The age of electricity is among us. An AI data center requires 5.6 times the amount of power as a traditional data center. I told you about the investments. I showed you what's happening here, but electricity demand is set to grow 6 times faster than the total energy demand. Coming back to those small modular reactors, I want you to know there is some amazing technologies out there. DOE has pumped $900 million in to fund this. And we've seen that TVA and AEP and Duke and others have already qualified for building small modular reactors. When I talk about small modular reactors, I'm talking about the light water facilities is what the $900 million was completely dedicated to that technology. Look at the difference. If you take this for a second and try to understand, we went from 640 acres traditional to 34 acres. You see the amount of energy production, and then you start thinking about the total construction time. Guys, these are 18 to 24 months projects. And we start to look at other technologies like the pebble bed technologies that are out there. This works like your pellet grill at home. It uses 6 centimeter uranium enriched cores that it feeds in just like a pellet. And if it starts to get overheated, what do? You stop feeding it power and you can back it off and reduce that heat. It is meltdown proof. They've been doing this in Russia. They've been doing this in China where they have centralized governments and can deregulate. They're moving to small modular reactors today. They already have been making these moves and they're using this technology today. Now, what I believe is a pivot point, a tipping point for us as an industry that we have to realize. Think about the job. The price has doubled. The scope has tripled. Electrical construction is at the forefront of this. And I'm going to call it what it is. I see this, and maybe you don't experience it in your market. It's easy to talk about worker shortage, and we've been having those work conversations. We're at a shortage of workers. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, yesterday announced his 3 biggest fears for the United States of America, what he thinks could offset our economy. Do you know what one of those 3 were? Not enough electricians. Yesterday.
I just want to point out, I was the chief mechanical engineer for the FBI. The federal government needs more engineers than are graduated within the whole United States.
We're learning this is a big problem for every industry, and this is a global issue. What I'm here to talk to us about though is this, guys. It's easy to have this conversation about worker shortage, but are we really taking into consideration in our businesses what's happening around the growing skills gap? How many kids grow up working in the shop with their granddads, their dads, and getting those skill sets that understand the difference in a crescent wrench and a set of channel locks? Coming in with a disadvantage. We've got to be realistic and understand that this workforce changing is creating opportunity to adapt and change. If we think we're going to move forward with the same workforce as we've had 25, 27 years ago, I'm here to tell you that you're setting up yourself to fail. We have to address a growing skills gap in our business. We have to understand that this is sometimes a bigger problem than what we are able to talk about much easier today. Just because we can bring people into the industry, I say this all the time, ability doesn't equal profitability. If I move someone off a massive mega project and they've been running rigid and I bring them in and we're on a commercial job on EMT, set them off. They've been running rigid. They're going to be perfectly fine, right? We know that's not the case. Ability does not equal profitability. And we've got to start having the profitability discussion. All while, by the way, we are in more demand than anything. And how many of you wake up every day operating your business around the principle of, I'm the best, the highest quality, the safest, but by God, I'm the cheapest and fastest at the same time. Supply and demand, baby. This is time for us to shine. By the way, this is from Kurt, the Construction Users Roundtable. These are the big capital project owners. They came to me in 2022 and they said, Josh, Look at what we're seeing here. This is all craft labor, by the way. This is masons, this is plumbers, pipe fitters, steam fitters, electricians, carpenters, all the above. Total craft labor with our current workforce. Josh, we anticipate 57% to retire going back to 23 in 15 years. Okay, that worries me. That's something we got to deal with. I got a little bit of time to work on that, but are you really telling me that we're going to lose 25% of our workforce in the next 2.5 years from when we started having this conversation? Yes. How many people turn 65 every day in the United States of America? How many Americans will turn 65 today? 11,560 will turn 65 years old today. Our workforce is changing, and you know what Microsoft is starting to implement out in Washington? Contractor workforce development assessment. Microsoft, as an owner, would you like to benchmark your contractors to determine who's the most productive workforce and the lowest labor risk? This CWDA is going to in effect right now on a Microsoft job, billion-dollar project in Washington State. And everybody's sitting by watching and trying to see what this means. This should not scare you, honest to God. What they're doing is they're teaching superintendents. This is the classes they're teaching superintendents on how to measure productivity and setting standards that Microsoft and everyone's working together. I truly believe that this can be an eye-opening experience that's going to hold the GC, the owner, the designers. It's going to hold everybody accountable if we do this right. But it all comes back to training and investing in people and trying to help them drive this CWDA. And I'm going to tell you, I said it was a tipping point. The workforce is a tipping point. It's going to tip over and impact a number of other things. This, Modular Power Solutions, right outside of Dallas, Texas. Do you know how much money they did in revenue last year selling direct to owners? Over $400 million. $400 million selling owner direct. It's basically designed for manufacturing. They create products. They do productization. You can buy from them. You're not their market. They'll sell to you and gladly do it. And you can spec out different types of products that they offer. And you'll realize that here we go. We can go buy that today. But the owners are starting to buy this just like they are buying gear on larger projects. Starting to buy larger assemblies, skids, modular, even calling it manufacturing. This is considered a manufacturer, not an electrical contractor. They don't see electrical contractors as their competition. And I can tell you, we see this emerging all the time. How many of you have ever been to Accelerate Manufacturing? It's Faith Technologies behind the scenes. And Faith is shifting their business to a model that is 50% manufacturing, 30% limited energy, and only 20% traditional electrical construction. Do you know what those 20% come from? Customers that they follow and everything's negotiated. No bid work at all. They're changing their business model. And if electrical contractors don't do this, we don't have to worry about it. Nobody else will do it. By God, that couldn't be more untrue. DPR, Mortenson, J.E. Dunn, Turner, they're all in the business now of doing modular electrical rooms and trying to do big electrical skids. And when I see technologies like the AMOB, the CRIPA, the STAR, the conduit benders, that can take a bend that may have taken you 2 hours and 40 minutes to bend down to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Josh, we're going to lose too many hours. I'm telling you guys, this is going to disrupt. We're going to lose so much hours. We can't be doing that. Electricians can't allow that to happen. Go home with your kids and watch Disney and remember what happened to John Henry and Paul Bunyan. Fighting progress always wins. It's guaranteed, right? John Henry and Paul Bunyan, not successful. And I'm telling you guys, this is a disruptive technology. Sheet metal has already gone through this. When the plasma tables came out, do you know what it did to waste? A contractor using a plasma table versus using snips reduced their waste by 800%. 800%. Today, go to a sheet metal contractor's coil line, the latest laser jets, all the water jets that cut insulation and do it all. They are manufacturing. I've got a good buddy that's a 10 knocker. His entire career, over 25 years, never been outside the shop, never been in the field a day in his life. Do you know what they do? They buy linear duct. Other contractors in our market buy linear duct from that contractor because they can't build it as cheap as they can build it. And I believe at some point an electrical contractor is going to realize this. They're going to realize, I don't have enough work. I have more work than I don't have enough workers. I have more work than I can do. I see, not in the too distant future, electrical contractor that looks at it and says, you know what? I'm going to buy my racks from contractor X. I'm going to buy my duct bank from contractor Y. I'm going to buy out a job and think of a job. I may even buy out the electrical room, and I'm going to go at this job because here's what I'm going to tell you guys. When you break down a scope, be realistic with me. What percent of that scope is profitable? Guaranteed. What percent of that scope, depending on the job, this area right here might make some money, we might lose a little bit. What percent do you know you're going in as a loss leader on? Why are you throwing good labor at non-profitable work? We live in abundant times, and I know what I'm challenging you on is the foundation of your business and how you've grown and you've been profitable and you've made a great business. There's going to be contractors that look at this and say, I'm going to specialize in CNC. I'm going to build and manufacture and productize panels where other contractors can build them for me. We've got a long runway. Amazon's telling us it's a 20-year run on data centers for them. 20 years. And if we think we're going to operate the way that we have for the previous 25 years, for the future 25 years, the pie is growing. And you're going to make money. But are you taking advantage of all the opportunity? We'll talk about this in a minute. You can be a lifestyle business and be good. You can be growth, you can be good. But where are you trying to go? I do believe there's a day a contractor starts to look at a job and prescribe based off their diagnosis of the job and how they can buy out a job and how they can see it different. When we look at industrialization, we look at manufacturing, we look at these things, what do we see? A shift from a generalized electrician in a world that goes to more manufacturing. We see a growth in what? Specialization. And contractors' websites start to look more like this than a traditional electrical contractor's website. More diversification. You grow off your core. You build your business off your core. You grow in healthy ways and looking at how you can step out and take advantage of these new doors that are opening in the world of electrification. And how that starts to happen is digital transformation. We've gone from electrification, industrialization. Now let's talk about where I think is a critical part to the success of your future business. How many of you, when I say the term digital transformation, understand what I mean by that? Okay? Now I'll tell you, AI has me thinking completely different about digital transformation. The way I look at a lot of softwares today, like Autodesk and Trimble and Procore, they're going to have to evolve very quickly in the age of artificial intelligence. You can't be a data locker anymore. You've got to be integrated into process. And how do we connect technologies and fill gaps to improve our process, not pretend that software is going to solve problems for us. Again, going back to that next 2 to 3 years is going to make the difference in our next 15 to 20 years. I'm not the only one saying this. Think about how much the internet has changed our life. The internet was the information age. The information age is giving way to the digital age. And what does that mean? Guys, we're talking about things like the internet and the information age, the impact on our life, to where the digital age now, more changing in the next 10 years than the previous 100 years of human existence. If you didn't know how much has changed in the last 100 years, what was the life expectancy of an American back in 1925? Who wants to take a guess? 45, 52, 39. 39. If you could make it past 15, you had a good fighting chance. But in 1925, how much refrigeration was out there? How many people had access to electricity? By the way, guys, you want to know how important electricity is? foundational to our national security. 2 days without electricity in this country, guess what happens? We turn on ourselves pretty quick. Electricity is a foundational technology for all of us. And digital transformation, guys, is going to change more in the next 10 years than the previous 100. I can say that with confidence. Some people are saying much more aggressive than that. But our world, we are living in the future. How are you going to adapt? And let me explain this to you for a minute. This should be your biggest takeaway going back to your businesses at all. When you hear me talk, data, data, data. Data, data, data. I can't say it enough. If you want to call it data, you can call it data. I'm good with that too. But think about this. Data is the new oil. I have to pronounce that very carefully in my southern accent. But data, like oil, isn't useful in its raw state. It needs to be refined, processed, and turned into something useful. Its value lies in its potential. What are you guys sitting on? What's it made out of?
Oil.
What are we standing on?
Plastic.
What's everything that we touch on a regular basis made of? Guys, we're moving from a physical, tangible, commodities-driven world to a new economy that is based around data and intellectual property. It's already happening. If you did not know this, this is the chance for you to say, okay, pay attention. Our economy, we're moving from an old economy that's been around for hundreds of years to the new economy. And the data already shows us. Look what's happening with manufacturing. How many manufacturing jobs, whether we do tariffs or whatever it is, I'm just telling you guys, even if we had all the manufacturing, how many jobs do you think it would equate to what it would have been 25 years ago? Technology and intellectual property and data is displacing physical commodities and parts and pieces. The information is more valuable than the product itself in the future economy. Data is the new oil. So what are you going to do about that as an electrical contractor, as an electrician in this industry? Let's talk about data for a minute. I go back to my days of baseball cards and I think about where I started falling in love with data. I actually love looking at baseball cards and looking at stats, and I think about where I was. And let's go back a number of years and we look at Stan Musial, the Cardinals. I don't mean to offend anyone here in Cleveland, but you can see there, games, at bats, runs, hits, doubles, triples, home runs, RBIs, average. Mark McGwire going into his home run year, how does that baseball card look any different? But what happened in 2002 in baseball? No, not steroids. Moneyball, baby. Moneyball. How many of you have seen Moneyball? How many of you can remember what it was the only stat that they looked at to pick a lineup? On base percentage. On base percentage. With the cheapest payroll in all of baseball in 2002, with that philosophy, using that metric, the A's, with the lowest payroll in baseball, won 102 games. They were in the playoffs and had won over 90 games 5 years in a row, guys, because they were playing Moneyball. They weren't looking at it and saying, you know, sad, it says this in the movie. It's in the movie. You know, I really don't know about that guy, his girlfriend, you know. I mean, they're making decisions off of his girlfriend if they're going to draft him or hire him or pick him up in free agency. Using this Philly type stuff to where it's like, now we're going to look at the metrics. And how this has changed, guys, look at this. Slugging percentage, OPS, we'll talk about what that is. Average, WAR. These are the statistics today that general managers are looking at. When he started Moneyball, 30 Major League Baseball teams. How many general managers came from baseball? Were born and bred in baseball? All 30. Within 7 years, how many general managers came from baseball? 28 came from outside the industry. Only 2 were left. Billy Bean and 1 other were still from baseball. Everyone else had come in as CEOs, and they were all starting to play Moneyball. What is our on-base percentage? What is our slugging percentage? What is our OPS? I think about that, and where I start to think about this is how many of you are using data to drive the conversation? That GC tells you you're about to start working overtime. They want you to go to 5/10s. All right. You want us to go to 5/10s? Let's have a conversation. You want me to go from 40 hours a week? Look at my fall off on 50 hours a week on productivity. Week over week, my productivity fall off over 12 weeks. Look how much productivity impact on 5/10s, guys. Look at 6/10s. Look at 7/10s. Data lets us have a conversation. Hey, you mismanaged the schedule, GC, and now you want me to go in and you want me to mobilize and move to a different area because you stacked us as trades. We've got out of sequence work and you need me to move. You do that on a Tuesday, you just hit me on my most productive time of the week. We need to talk about that, and I need to talk to you about a change order that's driven by data, not by gut and facts. It's going to be facts, not guessing. I'm telling you, your knowledge, your intuition already tells you that, Josh, I don't disagree with this. Daily, as I start to show you this, looking at absenteeism, when you start to use data and you start to play money ball as a contractor, data is not a stick first and foremost. You don't use it to whip people into shape, and you don't use it as a carrot to motivate them. It's data. All of you will try to weaponize it, or you'll try to turn it into a thing, good or bad. But I'm here to tell you guys, all I care about, the more I get into data, is tell me. If I need to know that right now my absenteeism between Thanksgiving and New Year's goes up, what is it? How many of you are bidding a job right now, understanding that that project cycle might fall right in that time, but you're bidding that work without taking into consideration that the majority of this job will be performed between Thanksgiving and New Year's? What do you think is going to happen to your absenteeism? How many of you can measure that and tell me, I know absenteeism compared to the summer, to the fall? What happens if it's been 90 degrees over a period of time? What happens to my absenteeism? What happens to my absenteeism if my temperatures have been below 20 degrees for an extended period of time? What if I'm working outside in the rain? Guys, data helps you make better informed decisions. And how many of you can actually tell me what's most profitable work that you perform in your business? How many of you can go back and look at a job and tell me that you hit profitability on feeder, but maybe not on this branch? How many of you can dissect a job and be able to come back in there and go back and look at your phase codes, your cost codes, looking at how you broke down and how you estimated that job to how you carried it through and delivered that job, can tell me what aspects of your project were profitable? How many of you sit down with PMs, your superintendents, and your foremen and say, this is your baseball card. These are the key performance indicators that we're going to look at. I'm not going to weaponize it. I'm not going to use it as a carrot. I want to sit down. I want you to tell me how much revenue. I want us to talk about profitability. I want us to talk and look at your baseball card every month before the month starts and at the end of the month. How do we plan the work? How can we do better? What did we learn? I'm going to tell you what I see every day right now. Price to proceed, that's another tool for the GC to try to hurt all of your businesses. Price to proceed, whatever it may be, whatever new tactic it is. But I'm here to tell you guys, retention pay is going up. I'm watching more electrical contractors carry retention, outstanding numbers of retention pay than I've ever seen. Delays, by the way, delay claims are at an all-time high. Delays on projects, payment, pending change orders. How many of you are sitting down and really trying to understand how do we score our PMs to be successful? How do we score the job to be successful? How are we scoring our engineers that we work with? How are we scoring the GCs and the owners? I've got limited resources. I don't want to throw good labor at bad work. I need to be profitable and intentional about how I'm being profitable today. We're living in the time of the electrical age, the best time to be an electrician, to be an electrical contractor in the electrical construction industry. I will tell you this, from an ELECTRI standpoint, I am working on this vehemently to help you benchmark. I want you to be able to look at your business, and I want to be able to tell you to predict, hey, backlog is increasing, backlog is flat, backlog is eroding. Watch out. You score this well in your field to office ratio based off a contractor in your market and your size. Your revenue, just so you know, based off other factors and how we stack these things up, based off your factors, your revenue is low compared to other contractors that are doing similar work. Now that could be due to a number of factors. But how do we measure these types of things and understand and give you leading indicators? Could you guys imagine going to the doctor's office, coming out of there and them telling you, hey, got your blood work in, your cholesterol's 458. Is that good or bad, doc? How bad could it be, man? You answered the phone when you picked up today, pretty good. I'd say keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully we see you again this time next year. And let me just say this, guys. This is so important. Keep in mind that this is where we're at. That install mentality, get in, make your money, get out. You know how much we're leaving on the table? This is what the owners tell me. The cost, Josh, to operate and maintain that building is 87% compared to the cost of designing and construction, which is 13% of our capital projects. In the world that we live in today, data, creating digital twins, and understanding the value of service and being able to connect that, how do you create stickiness with a customer? How do you start to own the customer and set yourself apart? Do we want to be the cheapest and fastest, or do we want to be a consultant that is not being commoditized? We're seen for our value. And how do I add value? Data is the easiest way. Coming and bringing something to that owner that they don't see anywhere else. If you guys scan this QR code, you'll be able to walk through this and see that I've got all the operations manual, data tied to every one of these switches, panels, mechanical, everything is there. You can walk through this on your phone. You can even walk to the end of the hallway by clicking on the circles at the end and look at all the breakers. Look at a live security feed. This is a simple example of Matterport now integrating with guess who? Guess who are they integrating with? Amazon. Amazon is creating a whole network of IoT, Internet of Things, connected devices that's going to look at the humidity in your gear. That's going to look at vibration, look at heat. What's Amazon really in the business of at the end of the day? Data, data, data. They want data. They want to be able to tell you which refrigerator performs the best, requires the least, is the most energy efficient, requires the least maintenance, has the longest runtime. What do you think they're going to do with that? Sell it. That's exactly right. They're in the business of collecting and selling and using data. And with NFPA 70B, guys, this is our door that has been opened for us. If you don't know about NFPA 70B, start spending time and energy to learn more about 70B. This is where we went from recommended to required servicing your electrical equipment. Remember, everything is turning into electrified equipment, by the way. Everything. Mechanical is not going to step aside for this, guys. They want to own the service industry, and that means electrified equipment. And here's the thing I want you to take away. Power, data are converging. Electricity and technology, it's blurring. The lines are blurring. If you've not seen this safe to touch, and you've not heard about Class 4 fault managed power, let me just tell you guys, 6,500 feet, no power fall off, safe to touch, Class 4, 450 volts of DC power. Look here, I got my sons like, hey buddy, put your finger in here. I want to see, tell me if you feel anything. He's dumb. He goes right in there. Look at there. Did you feel anything? No, why? Okay, never mind. You're good. No, you're good. We're good. Guys, fault managed power. You don't need breakers. You don't need panels. You change power distribution at its core with DC. 140 rooms of a hotel in Fort Worth, Texas, there's another one in Connecticut, is powered by this server rack of DC power. 147 rooms. And here's their battery energy storage that can run up to 8 days off solar off of the roof. Do you know how many rooms they have for electrical distribution on each floor? Zero. I'm here to ask you this. I'm here to ask you to think about this. None of these are wrong. But where are you in your journey? Are you a lifestyle business, working on revenue and building a business? Have you realized I've maxed out my ability to grow the company? It's time for me to grow my people and invest in management and growing my people. Am I ready to turn the corner now because I realize I can't bring on more people? I've got to focus on my process, and I've got to refine my process. And then when you really start to get beyond that process and you drive that in, the abundance mindset kicks in, and you start to really look at a job and you start to say, do I really want to perform that work? Is that the best use of my time and my energy and resources? I look at a job with a wholly different set of lens than my competitors. I'm looking at profitability. I'm thinking about process. This is the evolution of electrical contractor. This is the evolution of every business. And I'm going to tell you this, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Change is hard. Do you know how easy it is to do it wrong? I know. I do it all the time, still. But I live by this principle. If I can't communicate my vision, why to change, stop. If I can't get consensus, I want to go after the biggest naysayer in my company. I want them at the table. I want them to feel like they're a part of the decision-making process. If I can get those two foundational, now we can talk about training, now we can talk about all the other things. But it's way easier to do it right than wrong. And when any of these things I put out there for you today, I want you to remember this. I've fallen prey to this myself. I saw my first LED light bulb with the nodes back in 2005. I saw it and I said to myself, my God, this is the future. And you know what? I do what I do. You hear me doing it today. I'm an evangelist. LED 2006, LED 2007, LED 2008, LED 2009, LED 2010. I'm starting to look like a dumbass up here. I've been talking about LED for 5 years and nothing's happened. So I back off my LED pitch, and what do? I'm not ready. I've given up. I'm moving on to other things now, waiting, trying to predict the future, but I missed. LED happened. I'm telling you, fault managed power makes too much sense. It's going to happen. It may not happen as fast as you think it is, but I'm here to tell you the rate of change is accelerating. The rate of change is accelerating. And I'm happy to debate and have conversations about any of these things I've talked to you about. But I hope, if anything, you'll go check out electri.org. Know that I'm here, I work for you. There's nothing more that means anything. If I can add value to any of you during this conversation or post, I hope that you'll take advantage of that. ELECTRI is a 501c3, so we want to help support our industry and staying ahead of the change curve. So I don't have enough time there, but I know I poured a lot out. I hope there was a few things you picked up. Thank you for your time.